Yeah. All right, now, and we are super excited. So not to, give away too much now here up front, but SAP, we are known from the big enterprise world, and I didn't forget you. We're known from the big enterprise world, and with AWS, we have a great opportunity to bring out the power of our technology via the AWS marketplace to a broader community, which is exciting. And Doug just happened to pick SAP HANA One up on the AWS marketplace, which is a great testament for both our technology as well as the AWS marketplace and infrastructure and solution. So super excited. Then we found out later, I think over the support community, that what Doug and his company are doing with the solution, which is great. And Rob?
Sure, I'm Robert Grote. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Smartronix. We're a global systems integrator specializing in network operations, cloud, cybersecurity, and cloud solutions. We just got designated as a premier partner for the second time. Been working with the AWS platform. I like to joke since it was horrible, but about 5 or 6 years ago is when we started working on it. Now it's just a phenomenal platform for deploying enterprise solutions. One of the ones that we're going to talk about today is a solution that we built. It was the first time the federal government had actually decided to use AWS for a public-facing website. It was a presidential directive website. A lot of profile, a lot of visibility, and it wasn't healthcare.gov.
Don't give it all away.
It was not healthcare.gov. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and that'll be an interesting part of the solution set.
So how many of you are SAP users, if I may ask, in their companies? All right, so not too many. And I'm happy to see both SAP users, but also new community. That's exciting. All right, who has heard about SAP HANA? Okay, good. Half, a little bit more than half. All right. So 5 minutes we killed. Well, let's talk a little bit about SAP HANA. And I would say we stop at 20 past, otherwise. So let's, SAP HANA. Most of you may know SAP from ERP. That's what we started with. ERP, we are the world leader in ERP. Then there was a time at the end of last millennium when data warehouses came up. People started reporting more, and it started, the world got more and more complicated in IT, the landscapes and infrastructures. And our founder, so SAP HANA is heavily driven by our founder, Hasso Plattner, and that's off script. I wouldn't normally tell you those things. So Hasso Plattner has left the company a little bit alone. He's over 70, but still a very, very bright man. And he then came back and saw IT got more and more complex. Also, our ERP system is great. The data warehouses, there's so much integration going on. He felt the need for a paradigm shift. He was actually never a fan of the separation between analytical system, transactional system, the OLTP, and the OLAP system. He was never a fan, but SAP at the time followed the market. And he, for a long time, so we worked on resolving that paradigm, or this trying to find a paradigm shift for a long, long time. And I would say about 8 years ago, SAP, and driven out of his research institute, he's a professor now in Potsdam. He runs a small elite university, and he started doing research with his PhD students and said, what if we put multiple workloads, especially OLTP and OLAP, into a single database, a single in-memory database? And how could that work? And in-memory databases were nothing new at the time. But what wasn't so easy is to use them. They were brilliant. They were used for analytics. But it wasn't easy at the time to use them for transactions. To persist data, to write to an in-memory column store was not easily doable. It wasn't doable to do that in an asset-compliant way. The complexity is also with these long-running transactions in an ERP system where you create a customer order and there's a demand triggered. You do pricing, you do discounting, you do scheduling of line items, you schedule your logistics, you do some orders, some production planning. There's so many business objects tied to each other, and they all need to stay consistent. And no company was really, maybe didn't take the challenge, didn't think they could solve this challenge of doing such a complex transaction in a columnar in-memory database. Hasso Plattner said that is, that's if we can achieve this, this can change the world. This can change enterprise IT. And that's what he went out to do 8 years ago, and there were intermediary products. So while he built this vision, we had a product out 6 years ago. It was called BWA, Business Warehouse Accelerator. It's a in-memory appliance that, I think 6 years ago, nodding. I think it was about 6 years, 7 years that we launched into the market. Where we said, okay, first problem to solve is the data warehouse. The integration was in mind, but let's see how we can make data warehouses faster within memory. So they took the appliance and bundled it up next to our own data warehouse, BW. And then we had existing reporting capabilities, however a company had set it up with the cubes and their aggregations. We just said, okay, we pulled that data out and we made it much faster. It was actually a huge success and was the first proof point how this is possible. And that was based on a technology called T-Rex and our in-memory search, and was a big, big market success. And from there, so we matured that to fully production ready, and BW is arguably a less business critical use case than a transactional system. Because without a data warehouse, you can live without that for a little bit. It's not ideal, but as a matter of fact, I hear that all the time, and I experienced that at HP where I worked before SAP. Data warehouses get out of sync so easily with the batch jobs that you have. It's almost commonplace that the data warehouse is out of whack for a day. Escalations, let's fix it. So it was really the ideal use case to try out this in-memory technology with a little bit less risk, and it was a big success. And then Hasso Plattner, went the next step, and you really have to say here I have a few colleagues here, actually, maybe a good time to introduce them. Joe Binkley, he's super experienced with the technology. Please do look him out after the session at the booth. We have Nicole O'Malley. He stands behind our show organization here, and she works a lot on the Amazon-related product, has a very, very popular webinar channel. Greg Chase is here. Here, one forward. He's our, he's everywhere, let's put it this way. He built a trial recently, we'll talk about that later. And who else is here from us? I think that's it. So real quick about the people. So we are all from Palo Alto, and Hasso comes a lot to Palo Alto. So we have seen him there more and more and more over the years. And actually, until recently, had a cube in building 1 facing the parking lots. I would always see his Porsche or his Bentley and have him see in, and then we knew, okay, we have to be on our best behavior. He's a sharp guy. So about 2.5 years ago, we launched SAP HANA. And what that meant at that time, so we took various technologies together. BWA was the core. We bundled additional technologies in that we had from previous products, some acquisitions, but mostly organic, mostly our own innovation. We bundled that together, and now we build a database that is able to both manage transactional and analytic workloads in one database. All columnar. Actually, it has a columnar and a row store, but we use the row store very, very little. We are shifting all the workloads to columnar. If you store data in a row, everybody, I assume, knows how that works. You always have to read the whole row if you want to get query data. It takes a lot of time. Joe could explain that better, and Joe, if you want to, feel free to chime in. If you put stuff in columns, you have all the data together. If you have age, for example, it's all in one column, and on a database, on the disk, it's then written in its own block. And if you want to do an average age of your customers, or I don't know, average order value, it's much, much faster, much, much quicker to retrieve. And every column, every value builds its own index. So you don't have to do any indexing anymore. And if there's some DBAs, that costs a lot of time, tuning and whatnot. If you want to report on this data that's all in columns, you don't have to build aggregates anymore, because our technology runs in memory on multiple parallel processing. So we have relatively high-end hardware. Yeah, I have to admit, it's a little pricey, It's more expensive than standard stuff, but it's outweighed by the performance and the benefit you get. So multiple parallel processing, column store, you also get huge compression factors if you put your data in columns. Depending on the data set, if you have a lot of repeating values, the compression is much bigger. If you have a lot of distinct data, it's not quite as big. But we say, as an estimate, compression is between 1 to 5 and 1 to 20. So on average, I like to use the number 1 to 10. So you have 300 gigabyte of data or 1 terabyte of data. If you put it in HANA, it's now 100 gigabyte. So it's significant. Yeah, time check. So any questions up to this point? I mean, that was kind of ad hoc my thoughts on this topic. I'm sure I could talk a little bit more where we've gone since then. So we launched it 2.5 years ago, launched it in the market with huge success, found huge adoption. What I'm most excited about is the things you can do with it. Technology is cool, but then what you really can do with it. And that's, I see your question, I'll take you in a second. But to round this out, what you can do with it, and I'll go out of the slide a little bit. What you can do with it is so cool. And I heard the same message here at AWS-reinvent. They said, you know, infrastructure is important. I heard, what's his name? Jesse? What's his first name? Andy, yeah, it's day 3, tired. Andy Jesse, he spoke about that. He mentioned that many times, and I thought it's true. He said, infrastructure is important, but it's not mission critical for your business. It's not mission critical. So you have to make it as easy as possible. A database is super darn important, but it's not mission critical. Mission critical is what you build the business solution. That makes the difference. And that's how we like to talk about HANA with the breakthroughs we can do. And that's how our 2 guest speakers come in. Also, they have built breakthrough applications and simplified the architectures that they had before. And I've spoken enough now for warm-up. Here's a question. If you want to say a word or two, you know, I think. But let's take the question first, the gentleman here.
So like a lot of people are familiar with analytic applications of column stores, but like using them for write-intensive workloads has like a lot of overhead because you've got to sort of reconstitute the row by, you know, updating all the columns.
A real expert. Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, we know SAP is saying it's, you know, both workloads, but like almost all the references are still on the analytics side, and like I think it's John Deere gets trotted out as saying, okay, we've moved to, you know, the mixed workload. Is it that it's not mature yet, so customers trust it for both, or is it that you really need a huge amount of hardware?
So Joe may have a thought on the inserts, but while Joe comes up, let me say one thing. So Joe, feel free to come up or stay there. One thing, John Deere is a great customer. I'm glad you bring them up. Their strategy is HANA. And they're also experimenting with putting ERP on HANA, their ERP system. And that's a big step. And I'm an SAP expert. I've started with ERP 19 years ago. Personally, I would do that last. Right now, and it works, it will work, but you have to, when we are doing that, you have to optimize certain processes. I'll talk about that later. We have an application server within HANA. You push functionality down there. You have to do certain optimizations. We see breakthrough applications is, for me, the best use case. Still, the BW. Sweet as possible. We have very successful customers. But of all the things you can do, it's the highest risk. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we basically have taken all our own internal systems. You're not seeing a lot of references to it because people are still at various stages of rollout right now. And some countries are more or less willing to move in. Regarding the sort of right operations, what we basically do is, if you think about it, on a process, on a machine, almost always have more computational processors available than they're using in their dynamic systems. So we always have a lot of CPUs around. And so what happens is during a write operation, we write because the hard problem with write to an in-memory system is not only are you writing to memory, which is fast, but you also have to write
Back it up.
logs on disk. So we have a delta store that we write to that every operation checks with the delta store, and as a transaction is put in, but the thing is, in the background, there's a process that's going in and then updating the on-disk version of the database so that we can maintain capacity time. So we want to be able to pull the plug.
Oh, it's a cache for the log, not
Not a cache for the
not
plug.
for the, when are you bringing it back into the columns?
Well, there's a background process that does that as well, internal columns. But the thing is, we're constantly updating so that there's essentially a memory an image of memory on disk. Some sorts of time delays to make sure that we cover all that kind of things. So it's basically transaction log. And they make sure that everything's consistent. So if you have a power outage, shut the machine down, what's in memory is in fact what's represented on disk. That's the hard problem. It's not really the writing to memory that's the problem. It's the writing to disk because you're not writing to disk. So we're
Every in-memory database has that same problem.
right.
So that you have sequential writing, so you get.
So, yeah, Joe. No, but what we do, you know, if we have a power out, in all honesty, we may lose some data, but we are able to keep the database consistent. And that's in any transactional system. You only do the commit once all the transactions are settled. You do commit at once.
Any other database vendor that's got in-memory, you know, either technology in it, like with SQL Server and Hackathon coming, or, you know, one of the pure in-memory guys, and they're all like, well, SAP, it's really just a column store, and they're fiddling around with transactions. And, you know,
Can we have? Yeah, can we have their names?
that's why I'm asking, so where's the beat?
Where's the beat?
We'll get to that.
The beat is we're running more running nodes than anybody else. We understand that, and we figured out how to run as fast. We write as fast as anybody does, so we grow slower.
Is that partly why your nodes are so big? Because you want to be able to have all the columns in a table related to, you want to have enough processor cores to process all the columns in a table when you want to reconstitute a table? Or,
I don't know that I can characterize it that way, but we do actually run.
yes.
So I value your questions. Maybe we should take them offline. They're really good questions. And that's the thing. Joe, please feel free to stay, but I want to say, in-memory has been around for 30 years. But we are really the first to take it industrial. And because we understand the transactional side so well. And I mean, feel free. Joe he's a veteran, jack of all trades, master of many, I like to say. Call him our CTO. Okay, so since we're still the pre-thing, one announcement I like to make is we have a booth down there, booth number 200. We have something really cool. We shipped a vending machine here. And the vending machine, well, there is Coke for you if you so desire. But that's not the point. The point is that we want to show a use case for the Internet of Things. And that use case, we have more use cases in here. It's nice to talk about use cases. That use case is twofold. So the machine, of course, doesn't run HANA. The vending machine may have has a small computer built in and may do some processing, but not HANA. We don't need that processing there. But we collect data on the vending machine, we send it back to centralized HANA, and in real time. Now there's two big elements of this use case. First one that the user experiences is personalization. I walk up to that vending machine, I do electronic payments, either with NFC near field communication, or I have a Google Wallet or with a barcode or something, or my credit card. I can also do cash, but then it gets then the use case goes the simple route. So you show up, you buy a product, the machine knows you, you can set up a profile there. Those are high-end machines, so when you see them, they will only be at an airport. They will not be in a dark corner. So at an airport, you have time to kill, so you can set up your own profile, your background color, and play with it and spend time, be entertained. Now the machine knows you. It knows your preferences. It knows what you bought at this airport versus at that airport. Now we can do customized offers. You say, oh, you want a Dr. Pepper? You know, last time you bought some Doritos with Dr. Pepper. We'll give you a special offer, 25 cents off. So you can drive targeted promotions to customers. You have a market of fun. You don't just say on this machine, Doritos are now half price, and let's put a big sticker on it. No, you know your customer, and you say, yeah, this is going to click, and we're going to increase our revenue, our profit on that customer, and so we sell it to him cheaper. So it's very, very important, the personalization, seeing the market of fun, and with these razor-thin margins that we have nowadays, you need to better understand what your customers are doing. So that's the one side of it. Now the other side of it is that these machines, while the prices are high, they're barely turning a profit. It's amazing, but the maintenance is so high. Vandalism, number one, let's start with the negative one. But then just loading them, going there, showing up, the machine is still full, wasting trips, showing up, finding the machine is full and broken, that's why it's full. Showing up and Coke is missing, too bad we don't have more Coke on the truck, all this stuff. So the companies that are using this and do Internet of Things applications, they're now exactly seeing actually Redbox. I believe most of you know Redbox. They use SAP HANA for exactly that purpose. So they know exactly the customer's buying preferences because you normally pay with your credit card. They know my buying preferences. They know what I buy on a Friday night. I buy a kids movie or an adult movie or whatever. They know the preferences. They stack these machines exactly by the preferences on this single machine in this neighborhood. And they send the truck out with the exact load. Because yeah, DVDs are small, but you know, I might as well make the most out of my load and have the right DVDs on the truck. So their logistics is fully tied together. They do predictive planning on the machine level with my personal information and load the machine. And that's pretty amazing. And that's how you, A, serve the customer better, because there's a big likelihood that when I show up and I want the latest kids movie, and oh man, didn't go to the movies lately. So for my kids, it's there. Versus I have a screaming kid that says, where's my movie? So you show up and the movie will be there. If your pattern is that whenever there's a new kids movie, you show up at that machine, this DVD will be there for you. So you have satisfied customers and you have great experience, much better logistics, and so on. So long story short, the point I really wanted to make, we have such a machine at the booth. Please come visit. We can show it to you. We have tons of other cool demos. Yeah. And it would be great if we see you there after the session. And the food and drink, feel free. Dr. Pepper and Coke and Cheetos and Doritos and I don't know what. So whatever you like. Now I think we almost killed the 30 minutes. It was kind of fun. 2 more minutes. I don't know, are we starting in 2 minutes? Where's the boss? Oh. One. Oh my God. Now I'm getting nervous. Oof. Now it's official. Clear the throat. So thanks for joining, by the way. Thanks for joining the session, and also to you guys. One thing, that thing doesn't seem to work. Oh, no, it does. It does. Okay. Okay, oops. Oh, that's where it is, not here. Here we go. Okay. Yeah, it works, yeah. Okay, so thanks very much again for attending our session. Super excited to have you here. I know this is being recorded for later transmission online, so let me give a quick update to the audience out there too, and welcome, because we started 30 minutes late, so we already spoke 30 minutes about SAP HANA, a little impromptu. If I make any references to that later, please forgive us, but first of all, welcome everybody again. My name is Sven Conrad. I'm with SAP HANA Marketing. I'm responsible for the cloud-based solutions for SAP HANA, and that's why I'm here. That's why my team is here in the audience. And with me, I have our two valued customers, Doug Turner from Mantis Technologies, and he'll introduce himself later, as well as Rob Croad from Smartronix. They both use SAP HANA for their own solution or for customer solutions, if you can call it customer in this case. This session here, so I'll start out real quick doing an introduction on SAP HANA, then I hand it over and we summarize how to best get started. But one short comment. So this session is part of the big data track. Now, I'm in marketing, but I'm not always a fan of these marketing buzzwords, and especially big data is, what is big data anyway? And I like that point that somebody made, I don't know who. He said big data is anything too big to fit into Excel. That's big data. And I think he's right on. So we like to look at big data way, way different. And it goes back to this Internet of Things, this vending machine example that we just had. We look at it from the business outcome. What can you do with your data? And can you use it in a way that you leverage the data you have? Because whatever you have, somebody's big data is small or big. So it's all about business outcome. First example you see here is that SAP, big transactional ERP systems, we have the data, but we never really leveraged it on a one-to-one basis. Now there's customers, there's use cases where people know exactly what their vendors are doing. Amazon is a great example. The Amazon, the website, their store. They know exactly what I bought. They say people like you bought XYZ. They do all that. And they're leveraging their big data. Then going from mass production to mass customization, you see that in many, many places. You see that in the automotive industry. You get more and more product variety, which is very hard to produce for the vendor. So there's a lot of processing horsepower needed. And you see it in healthcare. Prosthetics are being made on field with biometric data. So a lot of data. But the outcome is the important thing, better healthcare in this case. Or generic treatments that we know, we go to personalized medicine. We have a good example for that in here. But what's in the way of this often? If you look at data and big data, well, big data is hidden and spread across these systems. We know that. I don't want to spend much time on here. But it's very hard to build these examples that I showed you. To build them on such an infrastructure is very hard from 2 points of view. I'd like to revert back to what Andy Jassy said in his keynote yesterday. He said, infrastructure is important. He has the same problem. He's trying to solve the same problem. He said, infrastructure is important for your business, but it's not so important that you want to waste your time on it. You want to spend your time on your business. Same, every box here is infrastructure and software. We run the software on top. It's also super important having an ERP system and having data warehouses and special workloads. Super, super important, but you don't want to waste your time on it, integrating all that. And that's what's happening to a big extent nowadays. So SAP solution to this conundrum is SAP HANA. And the people that came earlier, we spoke about that to a big extent. I described the history. And I want to only summarize that. SAP HANA was pretty much 8 to 10 years in the making in the brain of our founder, Hasso Plattner. We launched it 2.5 years ago to the market with great success. We have tremendous adoption and use cases. We have it both on-premise and in the cloud. Let me talk you through the specifics and what makes it so cool, SAP HANA. All right, so first of all, so it's a complete platform. And number one design paradigm is that we combine the transactional and the analytical process in the single column store, as we discussed earlier. This store is the database service sitting at the center of the database platform of SAP HANA. Now that's already a big leap forward, but we didn't stop there. We provide a variety of additional services with SAP HANA. Let me start on the bottom. Integration services. So we do data virtualization. For example, we can virtualize tables in Hadoop, and you see them in SAP HANA. You can query them from a single environment. We do replication, ETL, extraction of data, and so on. The next, it's really, really key from our background, business applications. The previous architecture, the multi-tier architecture where you handed data from the database to the application tier results also in bottlenecks and delays. So we have an application server engine within SAP HANA. It's called the XS engine. And there you can do compute-intensive workloads. You can move right in there. It makes most sense for compute-intensive stuff, and it's similar to a stored procedure in a database. We write SQL code on it, SQL script, and have other development services. Additionally, we have services like search, text analysis, predictive analysis, spatial capabilities, yada, 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 and more to come. We are going to be introducing a graph-based database later this year or early next year, and that's very exciting. So more and more workloads are coming together in this single platform. Then for rendering, for presentation, you can present to multi-channels. We support any device. And we have our own version of SAP, our own SAP version of HTML5. We call it SAP UI5. So it's a super complete package, end-to-end solution. And you can also talk to the database via the popular and common adapters. So use cases real quick. MKI. So what you can achieve with such a platform like SAP HANA are 3 things, what we commonly see. You can take an existing process and you get the value out of it. You make it faster. You don't really have to innovate. You take all the lag time out. You can really innovate and do something you weren't able to do before because you didn't have the capabilities. It was just not feasible. And lastly, you simplify your landscape because so many workloads collapse into the single SAP HANA platform. The first example is getting more value out of an existing process. MKI, Mitsui Knowledge Industries. It's a big conglomerate in Japan, very, very good company. This is a healthcare division they have, and they do cancer, they support cancer treatment. What they do, they had a high-end service. You, unfortunately, may have been diagnosed with cancer. They offered a very expensive 3-day service. They would take a DNA swab, analyze it in their lab for 3 days, crunch the numbers with a different system. 3 days later, the result would come back. Based on that result, they can compare your DNA pattern to a database of other cancer patients with the same cancer pattern, which treatment responded the best. And then they can put you on the right treatment up front. So much less experimentation, should we do this or that. Way better, but 3 days and a lot of money, not everybody could afford it. With SAP HANA, they can now do that in 20 minutes. So you visit the doctor, you get the bad news, and he says, okay, we have the service. 20 minutes later, he knows your footprint, your genomic footprint, compares it against the database, presents the best treatment option. I think that's amazing. Next one is one of the breakthroughs, and my favorite example. I wish we should put that demo on the booth. It's a free-to-play gaming vendor in Germany called BigPoint. We have this big game, Battlestar Galactica. And it's a great game, but the problem with their games is lots of players doesn't result in lots of revenue. It's free to play. So they have to find other ways to generate revenue. Now, I have kids. I know how addicted they get to these games. Once you have a player addicted, you want to keep him there. So they do real-time offers within the game. If you're close to dying on a certain level, you're running out of ammunition, fuel, or spaceships, and you have done that so many times, and they see, oh my God, it has been longer and longer since he came back to that game, you're at risk of losing him. You throw him an offer, I'll sell you a spaceship, and because it's you get it real cheap. Some other guy may have to pay more for it. So that's what they do. And they do stream the events into SAP HANA, and in real time, they spit out these offers. They got 5,000 events per second, crunch that, and they're able to increase profitability by 20%. So that's one side. On the other side, they now know player behavior. They keep track of all the mouse clicks, the player behavior, and they're now able to design better games for the new titles, because it's a very quick-moving business. Last one, everybody knows eBay. BigPoint is a German company, really. eBay, everybody knows it. Still, a great company. Went, through their changes, and they grew so quickly. I have a friend there. He tells me he's in the infrastructure there. It grew so quickly. They have so many data warehouses. Everybody built their own data store, data warehouse, and it's very, very hard for them to get a single picture. And they need to know that if they see anything is really moving well on their marketplace, they like to promote it. They like to make the best of it. And they weren't able to do that. So here, we help them to dramatically simplify their landscape. They feed the data into HANA, and they're now able to detect real-time signals on their marketplace. That's the end of my section. The only slide I have left is SAP, expensive, big companies, traditional, stodgy. We are not so bad anymore. We even got polo shirts now. So you've seen I own a jacket, so let me take that off. We have polo shirts now. So, and we normally have to take everything through branding. We did that without branding. I hope they don't see this video online. We'll be in trouble. So we are a way different company. We are way, way different. The most important thing that may affect you, so we want people to use this. So we have much more flexible pricing. We have ISV models. We have a startup focus program. Here is a slide of about 700 startups that we have worked with that are in the program. We have worked with more, but not everybody qualifies, or it doesn't apply to everybody. So we run these worldwide boot camps in regions, and sometimes they are specific to a topic. We do one on healthcare, because then it's a meeting of minds. Then it's both an exchange between these companies, these ISVs or startups, and between these startups and SAP. We look at them and we teach them SAP HANA, and then they say, wow, this could really make a difference for us. So it's a super program. There's no charge to it. Not everybody qualifies, but if you have a good solution, most people qualify. And the ones that don't, I've checked out some stuff. There's some interesting ideas out there, let's put it this way. Okay, so with that, I'd like to hand over to our first guest speaker, Doug Turner from Mantis Technologies. And here's a quote from you. I'll let you take it from there. I don't have to quote you since we have you. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Doug Turner. I'm the CEO of Mantis Technology Group. We're a software development company based out of Seattle. Coincidentally, back there at Amazon. I want to kind of tell our story today about how we've been an SAP partner for approximately 10 years, and we build solutions for customers, either on a custom basis or a commercial basis. we've traditionally done a lot of what you would consider traditional data warehousing, business intelligence type of work. And I think there's an interesting story here about one of the things that we did to kind of change the paradigm of one of the things that we were doing. So, background, we're 13, 14 years old. As I said, we're involved in the SAP space. Being in the Pacific Northwest, we have some of the customers you might expect us to have. But we support customers around the country. And as I said, a lot of what we have historically done is around business intelligence, data warehousing, analytics. Like lots of people, the advent of social media and the growth of social media, both on a personal and a business level, attracted us over the last few years. And we started to work with customers and ultimately built a platform to do what lots and lots of other people have done in terms of listening to social media and trying to make sense of that data for a business. What does social mean to a business? How do they use that data? And in some ways, I kind of regard social media analytics, and when I talk about it, I'm talking about working with brands, global brands like an Anheuser-Busch and the NFL and those kinds of brands, that it's a really interesting combination of big data and the cloud. I mean, social exists in the cloud, and if you start thinking about measuring social data volumes, and not just measuring them, but actually trying to interpret the intent and the meaning of social conversations, it's a really big data problem, right, or opportunity. So it is an interesting combination of those things from my estimation. So our platform is called Pulse Analytics. It's a social listening platform. It does all kinds of cool stuff. I'm not here to sell this. I'm here to tell the story of how we transformed our platform from its original design and architecture using SAP HANA on AWS. So if you think of us now as a software development firm, and we're in the design stage of our platform, we are bringing in a very, very large volume of data, and we are putting it through a text analytics engine, a natural language processing engine. Okay, so we take content from Facebook and Twitter, for example, and read it, do a semantic analysis on the language to discover what it is somebody's talking about, and then an estimate of sentiment based on what people said. So if you think about that from a software development engineering problem set, that's taking unstructured data, turning it into structured data. It's designing for visual purposes the ability to do analytical analysis, right? So, sorry, analytical analysis, that's a little rhetorical. To do analytical processing, to let somebody do the traditional slice and dice, right? I want to look at it from a pivot perspective. I want to look at it from this dimension, that dimension. How can I find the information that I want out of this massive data? So from a development perspective, it's a classic relational to OLAP, star schema, data warehouse, dimensional, taking transactional data to dimensional data. So we built a data mart. We built a big one, right? There's two engineering problems, ultimately, that end up happening. Number one, the NLP is very compute intensive, right? It needs to process through the language on a very large volume of language and make sense of it and turn it into structured data. Then we take that structured data, put it into a dimensional model, and then we need to provide users with a really cool experience to see that data in 3 dimensions, so to speak, right? And make sense of it. So our original design, our original implementation was on Amazon. So we've been on Amazon the whole time. And we create collection. We go through a traditional ETL process to transform that data after it comes out of the SAP text analysis engine and goes into the data mart. And then at the bottom, we provide the ability to do analysis on that data, right? Not a tough engineering problem. But when you turn the volume up, right, on the volume of communication, you put stress on the text, on the NLP, right? And that's a linear equation. If I process 1,000 tweets, if I process 10,000, 100,000, a million, 10 million, the amount of NLP processing horsepower that I need is linear, right? And then going into the data mart, I've got a great dimensional schema. We do all of the things necessary to provide fast, responsive information. But ultimately, these two things are choke points for our system. So we ended up, just a few statistics. So we end up with terabytes and terabytes of data in the data mart. And we ended up with 26 parallel servers running the NLP to try to keep up with the volume. Right? Great news for Amazon, 26 small instances. Right? But just this linear, ever-growing equation for us from a cost perspective, right? And a system administration perspective. So our team, from an R&D perspective, did a tremendous amount of research. We looked at Hadoop. We looked at in-memory from SAP with HANA. We looked at combinations of different kinds of solutions. And ultimately went to a HANA architecture and simplified the original architecture greatly and relieved. So I would say that we not only relieved our two choke points, we upped the ceiling of what we could process, anticipating that linear growth, and we added more functional value, right? There are certain kinds of questions that if you try to ask of data today, the computing power doesn't exist to ask it efficiently. Now I can ask those questions and I can get the answer back quickly enough to make it helpful, right? So literally I do all of these things and I save money because I shut down 26 servers and I add one. I had one big one, but I add one. So for us, the result was pretty dramatic. You see kind of on the left-hand side now kind of the key capabilities out of SAP HANA that we use. So we're using HANA One on AWS. What's interesting about it is if you think about the engineering problem, you think about the choke points, you think about the data volumes, one of the things that we knew would happen, but we didn't understand kind of the magnitude of the value proposition to us was, and Sven talked about this earlier, in my earlier architecture, you saw ETL. You don't see ETL anymore, right? So the data goes into HANA, and all of that NLP processing that I need to do that used to happen in stream through the ETL process now happens in place in the database. There is no read, extract, transform, run through the NLP, and then put it back into a dimensional model. The data comes into the database and is acted upon in place by the NLP. So not only do I get the computing horsepower of HANA, I get to eliminate ETL. Huge, huge performance gain for us, off the charts, and ultimately increased speed of processing the data through, increased speed of response time to users, took us from 26 plus servers down to 1, right? And just, I mean, you can imagine the statistics and the advantages, and it's faster and all that stuff. So ultimately, plus, we then got to use additional capabilities of HANA that weren't practical on our MySQL farm. The most important of which is probably full text index. So literally every single word that is in the database that now has a full text index on it. So the ability to search, the ability to do more complex transactions is kind of blue sky for us now. So, Sven told a story about HANA, about the differences. Ours is a specific example. And again, I don't want you to take the story of we have the best social media analytics platform on the planet. I mean, I think we do, but it's more about the story of what it did for us from an engineering perspective, from changing the paradigm of, and to this day, we still do a lot of traditional data warehouse projects. We have a tremendous amount of ETL development work that happens. People use that kind of traditional process, and that's still the right solution for a lot of people. But for us, going to HANA, it just pivoted our view on the world. Okay? I think that's all I got.
All right.
Question? Oh, sorry, do we want to take questions or want to leave them to the end?
Maybe best to leave them to the end.
Can you hold on to it? Can we leave it to the end? Of course. Is that okay? Cool. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome, I'm Rob Grote. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Smartronics. We're an AWS Premier Partner, been designated that for the past 2 years. We've been working with AWS Technologies probably around 6 years, working with SAP probably for 10, delivering enterprise solutions. I had an opportunity to work on a very high-profile presidential directive website that was successful, not like healthcare.gov, but called recovery.gov. Recovery.gov was really interesting. If you look at the president's first month in office, he passed the largest economic plan, expenditure plan since the Great Depression. $757 billion worth of Recovery Act funding. There was something very interesting in that act. It was the first time a congressional act actually had dictated that a website needed to be built so citizens would have access to all the data and see where all the recovery spending was going on. It's pretty unprecedented from an open government and transparency perspective. So if you look at that $757 billion and you look at the spend down, the recipients would have to report how much money they got, where they got it, how it was competed, where they spent money with vendors, all the way down to the subcontractors that they used and the amount of information that they had there. With that, we also had 15 other government data sets, information such as the contractor registration database, the Dun & Bradstreet information to get more data that we could mash up, USA spending funding, census data, things of that nature. So we had to take all of these data sets and all of this recipient reporting funding, and we had to create the recovery.gov website. And we actually had to do it in a 10-week process. So imagine from contract award to 10 weeks later to build an analytics platform that actually has all of that data mashed up in it. And it was the first time that the government had actually used AWS. So where we used HANA, and of course Business Objects was a big component of this too, when you look at all of that data and you want to look at eliminating or minimizing the amount of fraud, HANA was a perfect opportunity for us to look at a constrained search, take all of that information, and start to look at things like, is the recipient on a do not pay list? Is he using a social security number that's registered as on the death master file list? So we took all of that information and we created this platform that I think maybe we'll get a chance to show later, to really look at that and minimize fraud. The result was less than 2% of all that funding had any fraud complaints.
Rob, I think it would be great if you show the website real quick.
Has anybody ever seen recovery.gov? Show of hands. Yep, good. One of the, give me a zip code.
94041.
Hang on, I'm going to present it in a second.
Oh.
Which thing do I hit to show on the screen?
Okay, so we get technical support here. All right.
I just want to display that on the screen. No, this website.
We don't have any internet.
Oh, it's on. It's just, can that get displayed on the screen? What you would be seeing
Yeah.
is basically the analytics platform that's pulling in all of that data, mashing it up, and displaying it on the site for end users. Yeah, just this page. Can you just not necessarily that, just the whole browser.
Well, if it doesn't work, then
Yeah,
we should
that's
maybe
fine.
move on. Yeah.
But basically, it was unprecedented from an open government standpoint. It's the first time that the government has actually had an accountability platform. There we go.
Fantastic.
A little bit of moving. First time that the government had a pure platform that not only allowed citizens to see where all the information was going, but also had that analytics component to look at fraud and minimize the amount of fraud. And again, that's where the SAP components came from. I just happened to click in a zip code. It'll show you all of the different awards, the amount of money. Each thing has a drill down component, so you can actually see where every dollar was spent in your neighborhood with the Recovery Act funding.
And so thanks very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it, Rob. So I think this is a great testament. It's definitely big data, and it's all in HANA. And the beauty is they built it in 10 weeks, you said, right, Rob?
10 weeks.
And I'm sure there was a lot of contracting and setting up, putting together teams and data loading. So that wasn't the actual coding time, 10 weeks. I don't know how much coding time you had left for that.
Very little.
Very little. So that shows the power. It's a very straightforward technology, and you can load data. I also wanted to show a few things, a demo, before I go into some more slides. I'm a little bit shy now, but because I can't see that stuff on the screen. Oops. Okay. Well, anyway. Yeah, so let me tell you a story. So Joe and I got introduced to AWS about 2 years ago because we had a challenge. We had a great product, and we didn't have yet a cloud version of it. And we are a big company. It's okay. And our demo team wasn't as fast as Hasso Plattner and the team in Palo Alto, let's put it this way. Demo team is based in Germany, solid thinking, we think through stuff. We move faster. So we were supposed to build a demo. From the CTO, there was the challenge, guys, we need a public demo. Even the CTO had a hard time to get his hands on a system. So we had the challenge, came to me, Joe helped from the get-go here also, Frank Steenhans, he now sadly left us for AWS. We took the challenge, and I had carte blanche at that time, pretty much open checkbook, buy servers if you want to. And we know that story. I didn't feel comfortable buying servers. I said they are not cheap. Could have gotten them at a discount still. There's a risk if the project fails. And nowadays, you want to fail fast and often. And buying hardware doesn't fit that model. So that's a little plug for AWS, so I loved it. So I said AWS is the only way to go. There were still naysayers saying it will not perform and yada, yada, yada. But it worked very, very well. And Frank Steenhans, he was our guru on AWS at SAP. We built a solution in 4.5 weeks. And we also had to go through, I had to bring Joe on board from the consulting org. Took a day and a half. I had to hire an agency because we did a gamified experience. We had to find demo data. We had to work with, at that time, young software that went through many revisions. We had challenges there. We had to figure out, we had a huge data set, 3 million records. We had to figure out how to quickly load them to the cloud. So there was a lot of learning, and we launched a fully functioning, high-performing demo, analytical demo in 4.5 weeks in time for a keynote. And we were all newbies on the technology. And what I brought, I understand systems and I understand SAP. I knew what we wanted to do. What he brought a lot of technology, experience, but very little ERP. Traditionally, he comes from text analysis space. What Frank brought was the AWS understanding. In 4 weeks, we built killer demos, a killer demo. It was really fun. We showed it online, 100,000 impressions we had in the first year. With very little promotion, we had 100,000 people find it online. Sales loved it. And I wanted to show that to you. I'll give you the URL, which is really easy. It's vanity URL try.saphana.com. That's where we find these online trials. And first, we masked the fact that it runs on AWS because we weren't yet selling on AWS, but then soon after we launched SAP HANA on AWS, and that's called SAP HANA One. With that, maybe I'll move to the slides again. Okay, I think that's how that works, okay. And so my ask to you, try it out yourself, because it's doable. Anybody can do it. If you're somewhat technical, if you know AWS, it's really no big deal. And don't take our word for what we are saying here about this platform. Don't take our word, don't take anybody's word, just try it yourself. And I'll give you a few tips how to do it. And now I'm repeating the introduction to a little extent. Because first now I'm going to tell you again, remind you of the key things you can do with SAP HANA. Because it's a Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knives sometimes have a shortcoming, does everything for everybody. But what do I want to do now? So you have to kind of focus. You have to find a use case. I said that earlier. It's not about technology. It's about what you want to achieve. Here in this picture, I think we did a nice job listing the different kind of use cases. And on the left-hand side, the transactional ones, and here the analytical ones that talk to each other. You can build integrated solutions. Here the platform again. You see in the yellow buckets the same functionalities I went over in this more technical detailed pictures before. Based on this one-to-one marketing, consumer engagements, or anything one-to-one, where you really know what's going on. You don't have to aggregate anymore. You don't have to segment your market. Sense and response, so that's the Internet of Things. You can stream data. You can have sensors. We have an airplane demo downstairs. We sense machines, so there's a wafer manufacturer. They have at the wafer machine 200 sensors, and by seeing what's going on in terms of vibrations on that machine, they can get 20% more yield out of their machine for the raw wafer, and that's a lot of money. We do that also for oil rigs. An oil rig, when it hits bedrock, the drill bit starts vibrating. And you can see that. If it breaks, it costs multi-millions. If you have sensors on that machine, you can predict there's clear vibration patterns. You can stop the drill bit early and drill a different hole. Sounds easy. I don't know how they do it. So planning and optimization, MRP, we have an airline in Europe. They use SAP HANA for real-time fleet scheduling. We've all been there. Airliners grounded, mechanical defect, and everybody is running to different gates trying to get on a different flight. They push a button, and they find the ideal reroute for you. And they go by status. They know your gold, your first class, second class. They get the better connections, of course. The lower you are, sadly, I would get stuck, let's put it this way. So then operational analytics. That's one, in a later slide, I'm going to show you what's good on HANA One, also good for first-timer. Operational analytics is going to be on there. Big data warehousing, yes. And predictive spatial and text analysis. So these are all the built-in services that we have in the SAP HANA platform. Okay, now a quick word about SAP and AWS. It's a very strong partnership, very powerful. And SAP HANA is not the only solution we have on AWS. Of course, it's the one most strategic for us. So that's why I have two options for SAP HANA with AWS and SAP on here, and then a long list of other solutions that you can get via AWS. I want to especially point out the mobile platform, mobile secure, and the business objects BI. Especially more from a build a breakthrough new application. The other solutions, there's some of our ERP systems also listed. If you're an existing customer, that's relevant to you. But on the left-hand side, so the innovation catalyst, the way to get started is SAP HANA One. It's an hourly subscription on the marketplace. I have the web page up, but I don't know how to find it. Hourly subscription, total of $3.50. And we had another great customer use case. It's a good story. It's Globe and Mail, the big Canadian newspaper. A business analyst from the Globe and Mail, Sandy Yang, she listened to the keynote of AWS reInvent last year online. And we had a little speaking slot in that keynote. one of our executives. So she found out about SAP HANA One. She knew about SAP and SAP HANA. She found out about HANA One. Said, wow, that really helps me for my clickstream analysis, because they have the problem, like every newspaper, people are moving from print media to online, and they have to find a paywall and charge customers for it. So they wanted to find the paywall. She did clickstream analysis, took her 2 weeks to build a solution. Actually 4 active working days, 2 weeks, till she, at first, she had some problems with Amazon and so on, but she said it took her 4 days total to build a solution that solved a big business problem. So that's SAP HANA One, turn it on, turn it off, and we high-fived each other at SAP. Great, 4 days a solution, and it went up to the board. Everybody knew it. We came down to the carpet or to the ground floor when the next statement we heard out of Sandy Yang was that it's great that you can turn it on and off. That way we only have to spend $250 on it a month. And that didn't go down so well in the boardroom. But it shows the power of SAP HANA on AWS. But SAP HANA, the key thing I have to point out is it's a limited size instance. It's 60 GB of memory, of RAM, and you can take about half of it for your active data. Compression was between 1 to 5 and 1 to 20, let's say 1 to 10, so you can have about 300 GB of data in there. It's sizable, but it doesn't suffice for some of our ERP systems, for example, or big data warehouse. So therefore, we now have, for scale-up, SAP HANA and SAP HANA infrastructure subscription. We offer that both. We offer that via our own website. You have to go to the marketplace on the saphana.com website. And there you have 2 choices. You have to bring your own license, procure a license through us, and then you can subscribe the infrastructure from AWS or us. AWS has 256 GB machines now, and then you can cluster up to 5 machines. Or we have actually 526 terabyte machines ourselves, and then you can cluster 2 of those. All right, so use cases for HANA One. A little scale down, something that's good to get your hands on, and they're really easy to do. Any slow report or any slow database, any system that works for the transactions but getting reports out not so well, load the data into HANA One. Use it as a data store on the side as a data mart. You can do that from multiple systems. If you have to combine procurement data from a variety of systems, then you can also easily do that, merge them in HANA. You can also use some fuzzy logic, for example, to match vendors that may be the same but have slightly different identifiers, leading zeros or something, can match them in HANA, and then do consolidated reporting. Ideal, don't have to tell you, is event-based analytics, any event-based workloads, month-end, quarter-end reporting. Then the beauty for these use cases, if you load your data into HANA and you're used to building cubes and so on, analytical views and so on, don't have to do that anymore. Just load it flat. It's so fast, it's so performant. You can cut out this effort. Saves you a lot of time. It's, again, the simplification for SAP HANA. And with that, these extra capabilities like text, predictive, and so on, spatial, you can do really fantastic breakthrough analytics. Once you get familiar, you load something, play with it, you can really push the envelope. And lastly, you can build applications on it. It's a little grayed out because that's maybe then the next step. It's a different bracket then you start working with the application server, which is built in, and you can mash it all up. It's the last one on the lower right. Okay, now another call to action. We have a trial that was built here by my colleague Greg Chase in the audience. It's a really cool trial. It actually mimics this use case that the Globe and Mail did. It's a combination of, it's a big data application, and big data, Hadoop. Everybody knows Hadoop. So how does Hadoop and SAP relate? You can do big data fully in SAP HANA. But what that would mean, you need a good-sized database, and you would potentially load data into SAP HANA that's not of high business value. But it would definitely increase the cost for your hardware and software. So you may not want to do that. So we typically recommend use Hadoop. We coexist very well with Hadoop. load your data into Hadoop. You can pre-filter, pre-select it, do some queries to use Pick or Hive, reduce the data set, and then you load this reduced data set into HANA, and you have real-time speed on the information that matters to you. Because in Hadoop, you never get real-time. You can do now the what-ifs in SAP HANA One. The what-if. And the what-if, you don't have to wait. You press a button, you have the answer, do the next what-if. If you wanted to do that in Hadoop, yeah, you can manage tons of data, but you always have to wait for the results. In a great case, 2 or 3 minutes. In a bad case, 15 minutes. So here's a trial scenario. We have little business cards. It's called Try HANA Live. At saphana.com, I have it actually on the next slide. And we fund you some instances for that. Oops. What am I doing? So last, then we do Q&A. Resources. It lists some of those things. It lists this Try HANA Live, saphana.com. The example I just gave. Also important to point out is our webinar channel that we have. So we do weekly webinars with customers, by SAP experts, with partners, anybody who comes to us. And it's this kind of new SAP. It's very low effort productions. You know, we make it clean and good, but we don't, you know, it's quick. It's a very simple social process, cloud-based webinar platform. And yeah, we like to produce, we like to broadcast. And if anybody has a story, call to action, we'd love to hear your story and offer you presentation on this channel to share with the community what's going on, what you can do. So that would be fantastic. With that, I think I said it enough times, but what is SAP HANA? Combines the two major workloads, analytical and transactional on a single platform, plus many, many other workloads. Then it's available. So we have flexible consumption models. We have ISV licenses. We have hourly pricing on Amazon for license and hardware. And there's more coming. It's just the beginning. It can only get more flexible. We didn't used to have that traditionally. It was more complicated to work with SAP. And yeah, most importantly, I showed you the long list of solutions on AWS and potentially other clouds, but AWS is a very powerful cloud, plus our own cloud that we are not giving up, that knowledge. We are also building our own cloud with a focus on SAP HANA. We don't want to be a general purpose cloud vendor, but we do feel that we have a lot of expertise on these compute-intensive workloads with our SAP HANA expertise combined. With that, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Invite my co-speakers back up here. I mentioned the booth earlier. It would be great to see you at the booth, see this vending machine for the Internet of Things example, and see any other demo. We raffle away an Xbox and 10 Raspberry Pis. Please join us to get one of those. Thanks so much for your attention, but Q&A now.